Good afternoon, everyone. So we are here for the Collection Strategy and Scholarly Publishing in Times of Austerity panel. And the keen-eyed amongst you may have noticed that there are 4 of us here and 4 of us on the slide, but there's also Michael Zioli. And Michael has very graciously agreed to wrangle our conversation because this is not an extensive slide deck. We are going to be talking about publishers and librarians, our shared issues, our shared values, and what we can do to work together. I'm going to briefly introduce myself, pass along to the co-panelists. So I am Janice Adlington, head of collection and content strategy at McMaster University, which is an ARL Carl Library in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. We have an FTE of 35,500. Our enrollment has continued to grow even in the previous years, and it looks like it is starting to plateau, but is continuing. Our collections budget is about 16.5 million Canadian. And the Canadian is important because if you've looked at the exchange rate today, it's $1.41. So that is not as impressive a figure as it might appear. With that, I'm passing this along to Beth.
Hi, everyone. I'm Beth Blanton. I'm from the University of Virginia in Charlottesville, Virginia. So happy to see you today. And I was thinking as I was walking in about the subtitle of our A Bad Moon Rising. And did everyone see the moon rise last night? Wasn't it fantastic? Maybe that's a good omen for us. The UVA is an R1. And the library system there, though, is 4 separate administrative units, the College and Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, which is where I'm the Director of Collections, and then our law, grad business, and medical side have their own individual libraries. And apropos to, I hope, the very fun conversation we're about to have, about 21% of my budget goes to monograph purchases.
I'm Paige Clooney. I'm the Senior Digital Partnerships Manager at Princeton University Press. PUP is an independent, nonprofit university press. We publish now around 300 titles a year across a range of disciplines, the humanities and social sciences. We have a particularly strong economics list, but we also publish in mathematics and neuroscience and computer science as well. We have offices in Princeton, New Jersey, Oxford in the UK, and in Beijing. And I am, we're talking about percent of our budget, so about 20% of our budget is from library sales, but of our ebook sales, 50% of those come from academic libraries. And this is my favorite conference that I attend during the year, so excited to be here.
Hi, I'm Lynn Reiner Publishers. I'm the small kid on this block. Right? We've been publishing in the social sciences, but primarily politics and international relations for about 40 years. We publish about 35 books a year. We're based in Boulder, Colorado. And just kind of thinking about what Paige was saying, about half of our revenues come from libraries. And of that, looking at our monograph program, about 40% is still in print, and I'm happy to know that people still value print, and about 60% is digital. And though I don't think you acquire that much in the paperback world, I just was looking at these numbers and I found it interesting that when it comes to paperbacks, which are mostly being bought by students and some other individuals, it's still 75% print. And that has held pretty steadily. So, little fun fact.
All right, thank you. There are actually 2 more guests in the room. other than the 4 you see up on that slide. I had dinner the other night with Jason Bauman, I don't know if he's here, from New York Public Library. But do you know what the names of the lions are out in front of the library? I thought, they're in the room with us. Patience and fortitude. I thought that was appropriate for a bad moon rising topic. So one of my, I don't know if it's a favorite thing to bring up, though, often in conversations we say publishers are, or librarians are. And I always think, well, which publishers are those exactly? Is it Lynn Reiner with 35 books per year, among the best in political science in the world? Or is it Paige at Princeton with about 230 books per year from Princeton? They're fine books. Or are we talking about Taylor and Francis or Springer, God forbid? But they're all flavors of publishers, and we're lucky today to have 2 of the best representing the mission-driven scholarly presses. And the same is true of librarians. There are Oberlin libraries, there are public libraries, there are research public libraries like New York Public. What happened to our slide? Oh no. Can I adjust that, or? So we tried to get some, we're lucky to have one of the few Canadians who attended this year, and I see Evelyn Feldman from University of Victoria back there. So we have 2 of the 4 who are attending in the room, which is great. So we have an agenda today, believe it or not. The broad topics are, what are our shared issues, which is where we'll start. How do we define value in times of austerity? And we'll get the different takes on that, which gets to be really interesting. And then finally, we'll look at ways that we can support each other. How do we do that besides buying each other's books and publishing the right books? So I'm going to start by throwing the first question to Janice. By the way, we don't have any slides other than this one because we want this to be a conversation. So we have Chris Hart from Manchester University Press over there. The Brits are mostly over there, although I see Bristol University Press, and Edinburgh is here somewhere. Charlotte, oh, right here. Anyway, Chris will run around with the microphone over there. If you have questions, please let us know what institution you're from and what your role is, and I'll try to cover this side of the room. We're going to start a conversation with them and hope that it expands out. We're not going to have questions at the end. So Janice, the first question to you is, what are your challenges these days?
Well, the obvious one that's going to affect all of us in the room is the budget. That almost goes without saying, but we are a Canadian library. 84% of our publishing, I've just crossed over to the other side. 84% of our purchases are in US dollars. So the volatility is not doing us any favors at all. The international student situation, there was a federal budget that was released on Wednesday that just cut the number of international students that will be admitted into Canadian institutions of higher education by 65% next year. So going from over 300,000 to 155,000 next year. And this is going to affect the tuition revenues that we're able to take in. These are not challenges that are unique to Canada, certainly, because I've heard a lot about this. The difficulties attracting international students. But this is a very concrete impact that is coming. The tariffs. We're trying to understand what's going on with tariffs. So this is affecting the overall economy, but in terms of our actual purchasing, there's tariffs, then there were counter tariffs in Canada, and we were trying to figure out, does this apply to books? Does it apply to print books? What about the electronic? Please let it not affect the electronic. And it hasn't so far. but we're watching this space. There have been some regulation changes. So as a reaction to the tariffs, there are procurement restrictions now in Ontario for public service organizations not to start new contracts with US businesses. So again, trying to understand, what does this mean? Can we order a book from Amazon if we have to? What about Gobi? Well, we have contracts in place, but if we were starting new, this might be a real issue. So, and these are all new things that are coming to us that are affecting our operations. They haven't actually, I'm trying to find some real wood. They haven't actually affected our operations to a huge extent yet, but the volatility is not helping any of us.
Janice, can I interrupt and say De Gruyter is a German company?
Thank you. We'll continue sending you some dollars. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Beth, who can talk a little bit about the same issues from a large US institution.
Thank you, Janice. Just out of curiosity, how many of you are collections librarians? All right, I'm going to wait for some amens here in just a moment. Surprise, surprise, budget is also an issue for us. Our budget, we had a modest cut this year in an effort to save positions after our research grants were hugely hit by the current situation in which we live. But I'm going to take it a slightly different way than Janice did and talk about, well, sometimes I feel like a bone being fought over by a pack of dogs. I will put it that way, at least the budget.
Woof.
There you go. So many demands on us right now, from every kind of format possible to every kind of type of data or information that might exist out there. And I was mentioning, I think maybe to Paige earlier, no, to Michael, that my budget is, it's November and my budget is allocated edge to edge. So if we get new faculty, if we get new graduate students, and they come from an institution where they had something different and say, I want this, it's a real challenge for us to be able to move money around, to be able to support those research or teaching needs. I think it's also, but I don't want to focus just on money. I also want to talk about the relationships that we have with our vendors. And we pay attention to them. And we look for the same values that we have in our library. We look for honesty. We look for integrity. We look for open and honest communication. I will tell you the truth, and I want you to tell me the truth back. And that's important as you develop a long-term relationship with a vendor. And I guess the last comment that I will make is that the increasing specialization of the faculty that are hired by the university often puts unusual stretches on us. We have the general stuff, right? We can support the undergraduates. We can, but when somebody needs that very arcane East Asian classic Chinese books, or the Drosophila DNA database, and they expect the library to provide it without providing research dollars, or what the research dollars that they used to have, I should say, it has an immense impact on us. And I know in the past, we often looked at our book budget as, for many of us, I expect our book budgets are often the first thing that got hit. But as I was thinking about this very issue last night, I thought, I can't go any deeper in the book budget. The next time a cut comes up, it's coming from something else. First of all, because that's going to have the bigger price tag on it, but also because we're about as lean as we can be there. So those are a couple of my challenges.
What's interesting here, we'll switch over now to the publisher side and get their take on that, but what's interesting is we're hearing about, really at least for the materials budget and in particular books, they've been going down and I guess hit the bottom, Beth, if we understand correctly. The publishers are dealing with inflation of materials, processes, et cetera. It's going the other way. Costs are going up for them while the library budgets are going down. This is not a good dynamic that's happening. And so with that, Paige?
Yeah, there's definitely that tension of rising physical material and other costs against the library budget cuts. Though I'll say when we were planning for our panel session, it really felt like nice cathartic group therapy every time we met, because it was just a reminder of how we are existing in this shared scholarly ecosystem. And your faculty are our authors, and your students and patrons are benefiting from the scholarship that is produced. And at the panel yesterday with the Delta Think survey results, I mean, we saw some really sobering numbers there. About 60% of US researchers are anticipating being able to publish less in the next 1 to 2 years. So, you know, if we're not affected next week or immediately the way that the libraries are, who are targeted by funding cuts, that is coming down the line for publishers as well. And so when part of the scholarly ecosystem is damaged, we all are damaged by that. And I'll hand it over to Lynn to talk about some more fun when it comes to print publishing and otherwise.
We've all been talking the last few weeks, and I think we've all been struck by how much we share, and keep hoping we can find some magic way we can share solutions as well as problems. But I was struck just now about how, Beth, everything you said is the same for me. Even though I'm coming at it as a publisher. I mean, even something like the increasing specialization. We have people coming to us who want to publish their work, and it could be absolutely brilliant. And often I'm intrigued by it, but it is so narrow. And I know that Drosophilus person really just deserves to have her work published, but I can no longer afford to do it because I used to be able to count on, the ARL libraries each buying a copy, and having maybe 50 to 100 orders for something when a book arrived in the warehouse. I've been doing this for 40 years, so there was a time when we could sell more than 1,000 copies of a monograph, but it wasn't so long ago that we could sell 500 copies or even 300 copies. And now, all the work that goes into it is the same, but people congratulate me if I say we sold 150 copies, combination print and digital, and say, wow, that's great. Of course, the digital's a little bit misleading, which is, again, one of the problems that we were talking about, because when our model is that an unlimited user digital copy, a digital copy costs the same as a print copy. If it's unlimited, it costs the same as 2 print copies. That's our model. 150 copies is like more readers than it might seem, but still, what it costs us to publish that monograph, those costs haven't gone down. Those costs have gone up. Just the normal things that everybody does. The rent goes up, the health insurance goes up. But now we also have the tariffs, which is affecting us. In places we can't sell books. And when you're a small publisher or even a mid-sized publisher, suddenly not being able to sell books into, China. It might be a really small part of your business, but that small part is the difference maybe between barely breaking even and losing money. So the tariffs are a mess. There are other demands that are coming up that we couldn't have anticipated. Like, I love that books are going to be more accessible, ebooks. But for each one of the books that we publish, in order to make it accessible, there's an additional expense. We have to pay somebody between $100 and $300 a book. And again, when you're not selling very many, that adds up. There's the new European directive on, there's the safety one that has already gone into effect. And we're all for safety. but it's the same directive, whether you're publishing, whether you're producing scissors or scholarly monographs. So you have to go through a whole big, song and dance and pay somebody to certify. And then there's another one coming into effect in July about the source of your materials. So this doesn't affect the ebooks, but for the printed books, apparently, you have to say where each of the materials came from, the binding, the headbands, the paper. And then if you do, let's say we print in one place, but then we have to move to a print on demand, that's another place, so then we have to have them certify. Again, we have to pay somebody to do that. So I hate it that so much of what we have to talk about is money, but I feel like in some ways I'm having an existential crisis after all these years. Is it possible to continue to publish peer-reviewed scholarly material that we can feel proud of, that's edited and proofread and all of those things? Is there enough income to be able to do that? And if not, then what's going to be in the libraries?
And I think this, goes to our conversation we were having last night, where it was really eye-opening for me when I learned kind of what a small slice or small consideration monograph acquisitions are for a librarian. I mean, just one out of a million things that you have to deal with and think about, just as sometimes our digital strategy is just a tiny part of everything that a publisher is dealing with. And so, I mean, I really think that going back to what Lynn was saying about specialization, not to, jump on your toes, Michael, about, the next topic, but how we define what is valuable to us now in this changing system.
You're all mission-driven. Would anybody like to jump in from the floor? Okay, just know that you're welcome to at any moment. I keep looking for hands.